So starting out this example, we are just going to take the cube and delete it, and then I'm going to Shift A, add a plane. We'll track our plane over to the side, and I'm just going to go into edit mode and select one vert, and we'll control click mark in order to put a bevel on it. Press 2 in order to change it to a vert bevel. We press control tilde, go into the HardOps helper, expand on profile, jump to custom, and we'll just start putting some handles in here, and jumping needs to be vertex handles in between, and we can just begin having a little bit of fun. You know, no need for precision here, just creating some very quick handles to just put some bevels in our shape, and we'll move it over and just take a look at what we have and just make sure that it's actually reflective of what we have going on. So we just want to make sure there's enough segments here. You know, we may also do a couple of these numbers where we put a few ticks in there. You know, ticks are always real nice to see. Maybe put one here as well. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get these ticks in, but you know, you could always copy and paste the numbers if you're feeling OCD. In fact, the number that we care about is the Y, so if we copy that, we can actually control V. And that's one of the few things we're able to do inside of this editor besides not being able to drag modifiers around, but that's life. And we see that we don't have enough segments to handle this, so there we go. Now we actually have enough segments at, it looks like, 16 segments. We could also put a script in here to make this work, but sometimes I just like to eyeball it, and we'll just save this profile. This is my 34th profile. Congratulations to me. We'll click plus, increment it by 1, and this is our profile for this example. And so, you know, the fun with these profiles is that you can insert something like a cylinder, and we'll sharpen it, and the reason that we sharpened it is because we have apply crease on, which will allow us to put a sub D on it, and then visual geometry to mesh, and we could just dissolve this point, and this will give us just a higher res cylinder. And we could just control click mark to put a bevel on this, and we'll just go inside the helper for HardOps with control tilde, and under custom we'll just load a profile, and we'll just load our latest profile. And if we switch over to Hops tool, this is basically our result. So, you know, we can do all sorts of stuff with this. I could use box cutter, switch over to circle, you know, really start having my way with this shape. In fact, let's bring this shape back, and let's press Q, and under operations, let's sharpen it. Then we can hit it with a amount of smoothness to make that look better. And then, you know, select the shape. Always select the shape when you're doing a cut with box cutter. Otherwise, you're not cutting the shape. So, you know, we're just doing a few cuts here and there, just creating a little something to jump off of. You know, we can actually bring this last shape back, and this isn't even our final form. We're just goofing off with a few shapes, just playing with bevel profiles. So if you you know, already know about bevel profiles, consider this a you know, a recursive lesson in it. If not, then consider this a introduction. However, we also want to probably put a weld on this just to prevent whatever's happening with this. Maybe at the end, no. But we also want to dial it back so it's controllable. So now we have this mesh working out. So sometimes if you run into a non-manifold issue, that's how you would solve it. It's just having a weld in your stack in order to make sure everything's working out. So as you can see, it's already just a troubleshooting step I just jumped to off the fly. So we'll put a radial array in this and set this I don't know, 4, and you know, we just call it a day there. In fact, if I wanted to, I could, you know, extract this shape and repeat it. And you know, best part is because this is a bevel profile, we could still just go in and make adjustments to this and make this all sorts of different shapes, just playing off of what we've been given with this. So, you know, really it's up to you, but that's not really what this video is about. So lately I've also been playing with the idea of making trim sheets. So, you know, trim sheets to me are just these long rectangular things full of like decals and shapes off the brain, which I could do that. So we'll control click this edge and put a bevel in it, of course. And we could also use the bevel scroll, but I figured that that was, you know, too much to jump into in this video. So instead we're doing it the other way of just using the helper to help us out, because that's what the helper's job is to be helpful. So hopefully everyone's being helped by the helper. I don't know what happened there. I guess the scale finally applied. So let's just get that back, and that was kind of weird, but we're all up in the club. So we'll draw the shape, shift space, shift draw it to keep it live, and we'll just alt scroll to lasso line or a line box or a line in-gun, and we're just going to begin cutting lines in. It's just great. I love cutting lines into a cutter and getting back parts of what I'd previously cut off. And we could also scroll forward until we get to wedge. And wedge is one of those things that, I was just surprised that users were not aware of it in the last release. So as a result, I ensured that in this release it was part of rotation, meaning that users should be able to get to wedge quicker than ever. There should be no one not knowing about wedge, because I care about our tools being able to affect normal maps. So, sometimes I look at our tools, I'm like, wow, we cut really planar, guys. So, high priority missions, we gotta deal with taper. Gotta deal with, shape transformation on the way in, on the extrude. But, there's other missions that sit in the way, So, now that we do have proportional custom cut, we just gotta get the Z dimensions in there, and that part will be looking pretty good. So let's say I want to mirror this shape. There's a couple of ways I could do it. I could just mirror it like so. I could also grab this shape and actually scroll it all the way past the last one, and then now this remains asymmetrical, everything else remains mirrored. And let's say I wanted to lock in that sorting, so that would actually require that I toggle these off, and then I would need to put a new mirror on top that would actually handle that. But this is in order to prevent any sort of damage from being done. So the purpose of this segment was to just talk about bevel profiles and some creative ways to use them, just in case everyone's not utilizing them yet, because they are really easy to create, and we did everything to make sure that they work across each release of Blender. So if you've been making them in 2.83, you should definitely be able to use them here as well. In fact, let's disable sorting, so that way, or let's re-enable sorting, so that way we can get everything mirrored, and then we can locate this shape and just scroll it to the end again, just every time we want to keep it unique. But there we go, we've created this really interesting shape just using a bevel profile that we started from just this plane. And so I just wanted to record a very short video on that, on just some creative usage you can get out of using bevel profiles with boxcutter and certain shapes. And with that, I'll wrap up this video. I'll see you guys next time. So I was about to print, but I was like, I could probably end this video talking about kitops at least, or I could also talk a little bit about twists. Twist is always fun in half, so let's do a little bit of twist action. So I'm going to select this shape, and we are going to shift click Smart Apply it, which will duplicate it, and then from there we can actually go to dice. We'll dice it, but we'll also press T in order to twist it afterwards. And if we roll the wheel in, we see that we basically diced a duplicate. So that way we can just see what the result is, and that's actually a pretty cool shape in itself. We could probably place that here and begin thinking about how we could better position it to be beneficial to this shape. So if we wanted to, we could go under Twist 360 and just lower this down. Maybe bring it up on the Z axis, just sharpen it. So, that's fine. We'll just select these two and hide it, because we don't want to be distracted from what I was going to do, which was actually make this piece reusable. So what we can do for that is, first I'll save this as, whatever, because it doesn't really need a name. But if we're going to use this with kitops, we're going to have to lay down some things. So first thing is I'm going to need to apply all the modifiers. I don't want to take all the modifiers with it. I could take the bevel profile with it, but really it's not going to be necessary. And the next thing is I'm going to press QOT in order to put a bowl shape around this. And then in the F9 panel, we'll choose parent shape to selection, and we want to inverse that parent, which means that when I grab the bowl shape and move it, it's actually the parent of everything. And so if we change this into a wire, we've now created this parent shape situation where, you know, if we move the shape down to the level that we want it to be, we could Control A, all transform. So now this is the main parent, and notice that I only have the parent selected in this situation. We can press and go to our kitops panel, because how much kitops is going on? Hopefully a lot. I've done a lot of videos about kitops, and I'm hoping that people are putting together packs based on the things shown in this, because they're all concepts for things that would be cutters of packs that I would personally want to buy. So hopefully y'all are taking me up on that offer. So we'll just move this around, and I will just choose to create an insert. And so here we are in the scene with all this rubbish. Let's Control Z. I regret that. Let's delete the hierarchy. You know, we're not even going to ask about why it brought all the children that were associated with that. That's something we'll probably need to deal with on the smart apply side. But we'll just create insert, and here we are. This is what I was expecting. So we'll just change this into a cutter and just delete anything extra that's just not needed. And that's about it. That's all she wrote for this insert. So we'll save it, and we'll just call this Qbox 1, starting the Qbox line in the insert series. And if we look at this in render mode, this is what our thumbnail is going to come out looking like. So I'm going to select this. We're just going to material scroll non-destructively till we get a better outcome. So that's about acceptable. But we'll go back to solid view, and we're going to embellish it. You know, if you've been watching the kitops series, you know that for every thumbnail I always add a few modifiers. You know, ensure that that shading is just right so the thumbnail is perfection, or at least what I would interpret as perfection. You know, we could select the floor, shift material scroll, you know, really scroll through these material iterations till we find a floor that's real nice, you know, something really reflective, but maybe not too reflective. In fact, let's also redo the entire render scene. You know, we're having fun, guys, so let's take these lights. They're out of here. No more lights. We look at this in our render scene, and it should be nice and dark. So now let's press Alt VV to jump over to Look Dev. We'll just find a nice render scene that we want to be the guide in our renders. So maybe somewhere about there. We could press R to set to render to true if it's not to true. And when we click, we can just jump over to cycles, and this is already our render scene. So it's that easy to configure your scene. And so as far as lighting goes, I'll press Alt VV, and we'll just switch through and find, or Alt VB, one of my favorite hotkeys, and we'll just find a blank light setup that will just real quick give us a nice interesting result. Maybe not too green, but maybe not too blue da-ba-dee-da-ba-da. And we can actually lock in on a render setting that we have here and just press C to jump through iterations of different colors without even having to change the light setup. But for some reason I just like doing this, and I never look at it in cycles, so there's fun to be had here. In fact, I think I like the previous combination better, but we'll just lock it in there. And so I will select my insert, and we'll just choose to render thumbnail. And so this scene's done. Of course, I don't want to save the thumbnail ever again at this point, because I've added all these modifiers, changed everything about it. But here we are back in our scene. And I'm actually going to revert to a previous state before I did all of that modifier applying, and we still had this crazy thing going on. But let's say I wanted to make a new file and reuse that particular piece that I was showcasing. So I would just go to not that one, wrong kitops, and if we go under new demo, we should have Qbox right here. And if we choose to add insert, we are able to plop this in lickety split. And so with that, I can wrap up this video, and I'll see you guys next time. You know what's always fun is I'll press Control Shift O, and we'll open back up the original file, and we're just going to take this thing and just shift click Smart Apply, and I'm just going to Control C, maybe jump to a new file, and we'll delete the cube and place this object and just place it here. And you know what's always interesting with this sort of stuff is if we were to press Q and go and add a lattice to it, you know, lattice is my favorite modifier, and I'm always trying to talk to people about it and tell people to use it. And that's because, you know, it's like the most versatile modifier in Blender, and probably is the one that has the least amount of bugs. It's never been broken. It's never failed to give the desirable results of just being just really unique and versatile for whatever you need. So, you know, I just want to close this video out for the third time. You know, I keep trying to end this video, but, you know, I never record out in the living room, so figured I would give it a try on the nut for a while, just see how it works. But, you know, you see this shape that I'm distorting, and it's getting more and more distorted, more facet. It's just terrible. And that's, of course, on purpose because, you know, there's a secret weapon to help deal with such things. So let's go ahead and transition over to that. And so this is my shape so far. So, you know, one of my favorite things with Lattice is blocking in the shape really simple with the Lattice, and then going back in and actually adding more segments to kind of round it out. And we'll do that both on the X and the Z. So now we have this kind of shield shape. Keep in mind that before the Lattice, this thing had the craziest shape you've ever seen. That was definitely not a shield. And so if we go to dice, we see that dice currently is limited to the original bounds, but we'll dice it on the Z, and we see that things got a lot more serious on the Z. However, we also want to go under dice and dice it on the X to probably a more serious degree. And we see that now this shape has been diced into shape. So let's shift click sharpen and just roll the wheel until it's just sharp enough. You know, the mesh isn't going to be able to take much more of this, so it's really a fine battle between how far you want to push auto smooth and how many of the wedges we want to lose on this. But look at the piece that we've created, just drawing this out with the Lattice and distorting it. And then if we were to go in our modifier stack and just turn off Lattice, this thing was a rail. This was a rail as part of a trim sheet idea, and here we are distorting it into, you know, some sort of robotic shield or something like this. Could be the faceplate of a robot or something, but I don't know. I'm always pondering these sort of things. I mean, of course, now we can you know, alt scroll over to lasso and, you know, really have some fun with this. So, you know, maybe we'll cut out something. Maybe let's draw that again. And we'll press XX to perform a intersect cut. And notice that, you know, lasso is probably one of the slower tools that we've added to boxcutter because of its capabilities with adding exponentially more geometry than a circle, a box. You know, most people don't get into custom cutter to this level, but we'll press escape right here just to bring things back under control real quick. Alright, I got things back under control. It was a battle. So let's actually do the same maneuver again, but this time we're just going to use cut, and we're going to press spacebar to just seal the deal. And we see that the cut didn't go through. So what happened here? We see that it did go through. It attempted to go through, but because of the complexity of the geometry, it's just one of those things where you just might get lucky, you might get unlucky. And this is where, you know, the new Blender that's coming in the future is probably going to change things as far as Boolean success. So I do look forward to that. We do, of course, support it if you are wanting to test 2.91 as well. I am planning on doing some videos about it in the future sometime. But I just wanted to end this video just talking about some creative uses that you could be getting out of Lattice and using boxcutter. And here I am, you know, just using a little bit of lasso just to perform some cuts. And then, you know, with this thing, I'm always holding my breath to see if it does make the cut. You know, unintentional pun there, but still a good one nonetheless. So we'll draw another one, press spacebar, and with that I can wrap up this video and see you guys next time.